Welcome. I know you didn't end up here by chance. Maybe sleep wouldn't come, or you're just looking for a sound to keep you company? That's okay. You're in the right place. Let the sound of rain calm your breath. Breathe slowly and give your mind a chance to drift away from everything for a bit, to go deeper in the experience. Put on your headphones and turn off the lights. The story is about to begin. Back in 1991, Brian Kindle and his little family were fed up with the noise of city life. He worked as a carpenter in Baltimore, Maryland, but he and his wife Belinda had both grown up in rural West Virginia. So they decided to move back there, even though it meant Brian would be spending long hours. Every day, Brian and Belinda had to commute to work in Baltimore, so they started looking for a house in West Virginia. Eventually, they found a great place in a small town called Slynn. The house was more like a cabin, deep in the woods with no neighbors around. It was a one-story home surrounded by thick forest on all sides. The place was super remote, but Brian and Belinda came from a rough neighborhood in the city and were always worried about their kids playing outside. Here, out in the middle of the woods, they finally felt they could let their kids play freely without any fear. Brian also bought a friendly black Labrador dog named Coco to protect them. Everyone loved Coco, the dog, because she was gentle and protective of the kids. She quickly became part of the family, and they all soon got used to their new life. Everything was going smoothly at first. Not long after moving in, Belinda invited her brother, his wife, and their little daughter Jordan over to see the new house. Belinda had made a cake and put up some balloons to celebrate Jordan's birthday. After eating the cake, the kids went to the living room to play while the adults sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee and chatting. Suddenly, everyone noticed something strange happening in the living room. The balloons were all stuck up. There were balloons on the ceiling, but one of them started slowly coming down, like someone was holding it and pulling it down. But no one was there. The adults stopped talking and stared at the balloon, which had stopped in the middle of the room, away from the kids. Then the balloon started moving on its own towards Jordan. Jordan noticed the balloon, turned around, and said, "Thank you," like she was talking to someone, but no one was there. She reached out to take the balloon, but it suddenly floated back up to the ceiling, like someone had let go of it. Jordan looked at the balloon, then went back to playing as if nothing had happened. The adults were shaken by what they saw. It was impossible for the balloon to come down and then move like that. They tried to explain it by saying maybe there's a helium leak or an air current, but how did the balloon suddenly rise like that? They went into the room, grabbed the balloon, and tried to repeat what happened, but they couldn't. Then they asked Jordan who she was talking to, and she pointed to an empty spot and said, "Him." The adults laughed at first to lighten the mood and told themselves she must be imagining things, or maybe she has an imaginary friend. But after the guests left, Brian and Belinda looked at each other and said, "That was really weird." A few days later, Brian asked his daughter Blair, who was about 5 or 6 years old, if she wanted to come with him to explore the forest behind the house. Because Brian worked a lot, he hadn't had the chance to explore the area, and he thought this was a good opportunity to go. Blair was really excited. The two of them went out to the backyard and started wandering around. After walking for a while, they stopped because they saw something in the middle of the woods that shouldn't have been there. It was a vehicle that looked like it had been burned at some point. It was completely charred, with only the frame left. It was just sitting there in the woods, and there were no nearby roads. Brian and Blair went to the back of the vehicle and looked inside. There was burnt blood and some kids' toys in the back of the vehicle. Brian had a weird feeling that something was off about the whole scene. He said, "You know what, Blair? We need to get out of here. Let's not even look at this. We don't know what it is. Let's just go." When he got home, Brian told Belinda what he had found and wondered how that vehicle even got there. Neither of them could make sense of it. During the first 2 months of living in Sealand, Brian tried commuting to work in Maryland every day, but it took hours and hours each day. He wasn't getting enough sleep, and it just didn't make sense. So, even though they only had one car, Brian started going to work on Monday mornings and staying at his mom's place. They live in Maryland and then go back to Saline on Friday evening. That means Belinda and the kids will be alone in the cabin in the woods in Saline without a car from Monday to Friday. But Belinda grew up in an isolated house deep in the woods of West Virginia, so she was used to that kind of environment and didn't have any problem with the lifestyle they had in Saline. Since they moved into the house, the girl Blair had been asking if she could camp out for one night in their trailer, which was parked outside their property. She wanted to spend a night there by herself. So one week when Brian was at work, Belinda finally agreed and said, "Okay, Blair, you can stay in the trailer tonight." She wasn't really excited about the idea, but she felt like the kids were getting a bit bored being stuck inside, and she thought this would be an easy way to make Blair happier living here. She told her daughter Blair, "As soon as you go in there, I want you to lock the door and not open it again." Coco would stay with her too, and Blair agreed to that. That night, Blair went into the trailer with Coco. She was wearing warm clothes and brought a lantern and some books to read. Her mom went in with her. The trailer, once she was sure it was warm and cozy in her bed, she gave it a kiss and then left. Inside the trailer, there was a fold-out bed that took up most of the space on her right side. While she was lying down, there was a big window with a thick curtain that slid to cover it completely, and she kept that curtain closed all the way down to the foot of the bed. To the right was the trailer door, which had a small window too, but no curtain to cover it. At some point, Blair felt tired, so she turned off the lantern, wrapped herself in the blanket with Coco beside her, and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Blair suddenly woke up because Coco was acting weird. She was really anxious and staring toward the trailer door like... One night, Blair sat down and tried to calm Coco. She looked out the window by the door. There was a little moonlight outside, so she had some light. While she was looking, she saw what looked like someone passing by the door. She couldn't tell if it was a person, an animal, or something else, but she definitely saw it. Coco saw it too because she started barking. Blair thought it might be her mom, so she tried to calm Coco. She lit a lantern and went to the front door, peeked outside, but didn't see anything. She opened the door and looked around. No one was there. She called out, "Mom? Mom?" But no one answered. She then looked at the neighbor's house, and all the lights were off. There was no sign that her mom had left. Blair panicked, closed and locked the door, then went back to her bed. While Blair had lit the lantern and went to the door calling for her mom, Coco stayed in bed staring out the window, where the heavy curtain covered a spot on the other side. When Blair got back to bed, Coco was baring her teeth and growling at the window. Blair was terrified, jumped into bed, pulled the blanket over her head, and sat there hoping Coco would stop and everything would end so she could finally sleep. But Coco didn't stop. Blair tried to pull Coco to hide with her under the blanket, but Coco wouldn't. Blair stopped looking out the window at the door and the barking. She decided she had to look out that window. Maybe it was my mom. Maybe I just didn't see her earlier. Maybe she was trying to get in. Maybe she was knocking and I didn't hear. So, she pulled the blanket off her head, moved closer to the wall by the window, and started pulling the curtain aside. As soon as she got a look outside, she saw a dark figure, like a man, standing outside the glass, staring into the trailer. She was terrified. She dropped the curtain, jumped back into bed, and covered herself with the blanket. Coco jumped on Blair like she was protecting her. After a little while, Coco calmed down and Blair was able to... Blair finally went to sleep that night, but something strange was happening in the main house too. Right after she got back from the trailer, Belinda had already put Sean, Blair's little brother, to bed. Sean was 3 years old, and usually slept soundly through the night, never waking up until morning. But that night, unlike usual, while Belinda was lying in her bed, Sean woke up several times and came into her room saying he was scared and didn't want to stay in his own room. Each time, Belinda got up and took him back to his bed, telling him there was nothing to worry about. It was just a new house and he was safe. But by the third or fourth time, because Sean's behavior was strange, so I asked him what was wrong. "Are you afraid of something?" I asked. He said there was a monster by my window. Belinda assumed he might have seen a deer or some other animal outside since all the bedroom windows in the house were low, being a single-story home. She went to the window and looked outside, but there was nothing there except the dark forest. She tried to reassure him, saying, "It must have been a deer passing by the window, nothing to be scared of." Eventually, he calmed down and went to sleep. The next morning, Blair woke up feeling relaxed with sunlight streaming through the small window in the door. She and Coco went back to the main house, and she sat down to have breakfast. With her mom and brother, Belinda asked Blair how the camping night was. But Blair, who's usually a chatty kid, stayed silent. Their mom tried to get her to talk. "Did you have fun? Don't you want to tell me anything?" Blair said, "No, I don't think so. Maybe I want to go camping again," but didn't say much else and didn't want to talk about it. So Belinda left her alone without asking more questions. The day passed quietly, and at night Belinda put the kids to bed as usual and went to sleep herself. But she had a strange dream. In the dream, she woke up and saw a strange boy at the foot of her bed, motioning for her to follow him. She got out of bed and followed him to the front yard where the day was bright, and the front yard was full of random clotheslines with white sheets hanging on them, blocking her view of the boy. Suddenly, she felt something on her toe. She looked down and saw a clothespin clipped to it. When she took it off, she woke up for real. She sat up in bed trying to make sense of what had happened, then went back to sleep. But the real shock came in the morning. While she was making her bed, she found a clothespin on the floor. What freaked her out was that they didn't have any clothespins at home. Linda panicked, wondering how it got there. Had she been sleepwalking? Was the dream real? She called her sister. To tell her the story, she advised her, "You need a break. You're stuck with the kids all the time. Let me take care of them while you go out for a walk and clear your mind." So, Belinda's sister came over and took the kids with her, while Belinda decided to explore the forest behind her house. As she walked, she noticed a small graveyard on their property or nearby. When she got closer, she saw 4 small gravestones without any inscriptions, but their size suggested they were children's graves. This worried her, so she cut her walk short and went back. A few days later, Belinda suddenly woke up in her room for no clear reason. She sat up and looked around, noticing that the curtains, which usually, the window covering her bed was open. She felt really uneasy, especially after the trailer incident. She usually kept the curtains closed. She got up to close the curtains and looked out the window. She saw a dark figure that looked like a man standing at the edge of the trees. She stared at him and saw him start moving toward her, then he began running toward the house. She slammed the curtains shut, jumped into bed, and pulled the blanket over herself, not knowing what to do. She heard Coco barking from her mom's room. Belinda woke up to the barking and looked out the window but didn't see anything. She tried to calm the dog, thinking maybe it had seen a deer. Being caring, she checked on her kids and found Sean asleep in his bed, but Blair, she was hiding under the blanket, scared. I asked her, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Blair said she saw something running toward the house. Belinda thought maybe her daughter just saw an animal, like when Sean saw the monster before. She comforted her daughter and said, "Don't worry, everything's fine." She put her back to bed, made sure Sean was asleep, then she and Coco went back to her room. Around midnight, while Belinda was lying on her side, she felt light taps on her head. She figured it was Sean or Blair coming in, scared. Without opening her eyes, she said, There's nothing to be afraid of. Go back to sleep." But the tapping kept happening. When she turned around, no one was there. And the weirdest part was, Coco was still on the bed. She looked fearfully toward the source of the noises, turned on the light, and searched the room. Then she checked on her kids who were asleep. She walked around the house to make sure all the doors were locked. She went back to bed with Coco, feeling terrified. All these things, the kids seeing stuff outside, the cemetery, that weird clothespin, and now the light tapping sounds, made her think for the first time that the house might actually be haunted. The next day, Belinda wanted to get away from the house, so she called her mom to borrow her car to run some errands. Her mom agreed and brought the car over. Belinda packed up with her kids, grabbed their stuff, and they headed into town. When they left Coco in her cage. The back door was tightly shut. They headed to a gas station in Slime. While Belinda was filling up her car, another woman from the village stopped next to her. During their chat, the woman asked where Belinda lived in Slime. When Belinda described her home's location, the woman said, "Do you know the story about that land? Years ago, there was a huge fire near your property that killed an entire family." Belinda told her she had found a small grave behind the house, which brought her some comfort. She figured that poor family might be the source of the strange happenings, and they weren't evil, just sad. When they got back, they discovered that Coco was missing from the cage. It was locked up and showed no signs of being broken into. They could only guess that someone had stolen it. Unfortunately, they never saw it again. It was a huge loss for the family. Coco wasn't just a beloved dog, she was their protector too. A few days later, while Belinda was watching TV alone at night, her husband Brian was at work and the kids were asleep, she dozed off without realizing it. She dreamed of the strange boy again. In the dream, he led her to the front yard filled with white sheets hanging everywhere. She saw the boy looking terrified. Then a dark, faceless figure started moving towards her. Suddenly, she woke up to Sean's screams. She rushed to check on him and found him lying down. On the ground, he was in pain and crying, his arm broken. He told them, terrified and crying. The monster came in through the window. It came in through the window. Belinda quickly rushed to calm him down. After that, they took him to the hospital where he had to stay for a few days. On the way back, their car broke down, and an old lady from Salina stopped to help them. When she found out where they lived, she asked Belinda, "Do you know the truth about your house?" Belinda replied, "Yes, I was told that a poor family died there, burned in their car." The old lady, surprised, said, "No, that's not what happened. Who told you that story? The last person to live in your house was a man rumored to kidnap and kill children, according to the townspeople. They tricked him into going out with them on a hunting trip, then killed him and burned his body in a car in the woods. His body was never found." Belinda was shocked because the haunted spirit didn't belong to an innocent family, but to a vicious killer. Finally, they said goodbye to the old woman and went back home. When they got inside, Belinda felt extreme fear. She sensed the house was haunted by an evil spirit and realized she couldn't stay there any longer. She grabbed the phone, called Brian and said, "I can't stay here another night. We have to leave this house immediately." Brian agreed and drove over from Maryland. After that, the family packed some bags, got in the car, and left. Everyone went to Brian's dad's house, and that was it. They didn't spend another night there. They only came back a few times to pack up their remaining stuff and load it into moving trucks before leaving. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and share the video with anyone who loves this kind of content. And make sure to subscribe to our variety channel. We always have stories worth telling.